All right, everybody, welcome back to Scratch the Vinyl. I have another awesome guest on our hands. I have him in studio. He's a sponsor of ours. He's an owner of I think one of the best live venues here in town. And if you don't know anything about it, you've been living under a rock for many years. So come out of that rock and come talk to us and talk to our guest, Pat Gray. Pat, how are you doing?
I'm good. You guys are making me feel way more important than I should.
You are important, man. You know, honestly, the thing is you supported me as a musician back in the days, right? With the Low on Cash band, you took a chance on us. You saw something in us. You let us play there many times. You let us open for you for some different things. You had TJ Broskoff and some other big shows that came through, and we got to open for those. And man, I've always had a fondness for you and your venue. So I really appreciate what you've done, man.
Well, I appreciate it too, and I appreciate all the bands that come through. You know, funny story about TJ. He had a little trouble getting a following in Lincoln, but he said south of Oklahoma City he'll draw 400 or 500 people. So he's pretty regional. Yeah. I had seen him the first time and didn't even realize it. Opened up for Dwight Yoakam in Dallas, Texas. Man. So I watched the video. The first video I saw was from the venue in Dallas where I had seen him live and not realized that that's who it was. So, yeah. Yeah, TJ's a good guy, and I appreciate those guys that are working hard to try to make it.
Well, Texas is massive. I mean, he was #1 on the Texas charts, which is not easy to do when you consider how many amazing musicians come from Texas. I know when we played with in front of him at the time, he was right there at the top of the list, and I remember buying his album when I was there, and I still have it in my collection in here, and it's a killer album, man. I mean, I would suggest anybody. Man, maybe I can get him on the show. I don't know if you have a contact for it, but they're really awesome.
Yeah, I've got his number, so I'll give it to you. Yeah, and you know, for Dwight Yoakam to pick you as your opener, that's pretty special stuff. I mean, he had told a story about how Dwight and his sound guy would fight every night over one of Dwight's speakers, his amp speaker, and he said they'd get over it and then they'd fight again the next show every night. So yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to hear these guys come through. You hear some really interesting stories. So TJ's steel guitar player was Hank Williams, the third steel guitar player for a couple of years. So you get to hear these expanding stories from these artists that played with other artists that played with other artists. And, you know, some of them you know, some of them you don't. But it's cool to hear these stories about other artists and backstage stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Like that, yeah.
Well, the cool thing was when I played in Low on Cash, I used to tell people that my name was Luan Cash and that I was the son of Johnny Cash. And so I told these guys that, and the guitar player, I took him to get batteries or something and get him, you know, we had like a shot of Fireball together in the Misery Machine. And he was calling me Cash the whole night, man. It felt amazing. Like for one night, I felt like somebody, you know?
You know, that, and an interesting story about that, there was a blues band that had played in Omaha, and they played 3 or 4 times. It was Drew Jude and the Cool Tones. And about the second time he played, I got to talk to him, and he said that his dad was John Lee Hooker. And I said, well, you might have told me that. That's a pretty good marketing tool, the son of John Lee Hooker playing. And he goes, well, it wasn't really a big deal. There was 14 of us that had never met Dad. So.
Well, let's bring in our other hosts here. I get excited when I have somebody here in studio, and I think for good reason too. But let's bring in the pale lady with the red lips. I think she's a witch, but I'm not sure. She's bewitched all of us. Brooke Johnson, how are you?
I'm not a witch. I'm your co-host. I love that movie. I'm doing great. I'm doing really good. I'm so glad Pat's here. I really enjoy going to your bar, your venue. I love everybody that's there. In fact, I was just there a few nights ago, hanging out. It's a great place. Thanks for being here, Pat.
Well, thank you.
Did you get kicked out or anything, Brooke? Did you do anything wild while you were there?
Yeah, I got kicked out. You're not supposed to tell anybody. Jeez, come on now.
You're banned from the bar.
Yeah, I was dancing on the table again.
Then we got the man himself, the Godzilla of entertainment and karaoke in Lincoln. Here he comes. He's knocking over another building, everybody. He is Randy, Mr. Chill Wilson. Randy, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's another great day here in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I have known Pat a long time. Man, nobody understands more about what it takes to bring live music here into town and support it. I really appreciate all you do, man. This town really needs, good bar owners like yourself that really promote and, really give these bands a good opportunity to get out there and showcase their talents every week. I've seen so many shows at your place, and there's certain bands I like to follow. So I'm always there when they're playing, and again, just appreciate what you do.
Well, thank you, Randy. I appreciate that.
So Pat, let's talk a little bit about why you guys got into the bar business, why you have such a fondness for live music and everything that you guys do.
Well, to make a long story long, I used to work the bar as a bartender with the previous owner from 6 a.m. to noon on Saturdays. And it was quite a struggle to be out till 2:30 in the morning and roll in at 6 a.m. to work the bar. But I was working a full-time job, and it was kind of fun just to go in and bartend and visit with the old guys and, play music off my MP3 player because, we didn't have streaming at that time. So after 3 or 4 years of that, the owner at the time said, "Would you like to buy the bar?" And I said, "Oh, I never thought about it." And he gave us a price, and I said, it's too much. I just can't do it. So about a year later, he said, "Hey, how about I sell it to you for the price of inventory?" And I said, "Why don't you and I talk tomorrow?" And we ended up buying a bar. And so I knew I wanted to do live music. They'd never had live music there, at least not on a regular basis. There wasn't a stage. There wasn't a sound. There was a DJ booth and some old speakers, but none of it worth using. So we took the dive and initially built the stage, and we're having people bring their own sound in. Talked to a company that I don't think they're around anymore, Vessel Live, and they got us the equipment, got us set up, got us the board, got us ready to go. And I was running sound initially. And then we got our sound guy, Jeff Hadley, who was just great. I started letting him do it full time. And that's where the live music rolled out of. We had tried to do some midweek shows, but it just doesn't work all that well. It's got to be a pretty big act in Lincoln, Nebraska to draw somebody out on a school night.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, but you guys do take chances on. You guys do what Randy used to do, which is take a chance on metal bands, give them a platform to play. And I love that because I started out in punk and metal, and we had nowhere to play. We did occasionally. You could play at Knickerbocker's, which was amazing. I miss that place. And we would do house shows. We would just decide like some week, like there's going to be a house show. Everybody would show up, and usually you'd get beat up by the cops by the end of the night. And it was a great night, right?
Yeah.
But we got a place to go now. We can go to Gray's Keg. We can watch metal bands. They have some of the best cover bands in town come in and out of there. They have all sorts of different acts. So I can only imagine if you guys haven't been out there yet, you really do need to try to revisit it, because I've been saying it for weeks now. It's just off the beaten path of that little stretch of bars right downtown that everybody hits. So if you just walk a little bit further, you're going to find yourself a great venue with great prices and good entertainment, especially on the weekends.
Well, one of the advantages is Pat's place actually has a little bit of parking, so you could actually, a lot of the problems with downtown is all destination, and you either walk or you're parking a long ways or parking in a garage to get there. At least Pat's fortunate enough to be just enough down off the beaten path that they actually have a little bit of a parking space and can get actually people from around town and not just the downtown area. So
yeah, there's a few spots out there. If we got a busy night, you have to, but there's still a fair amount of street parking close too. So you're not walking 4 or 5 blocks. You can usually get within 2 blocks of the front door. So,
and not only the parking is good, but I think the stage and where you can dance right off of it there, that's probably one of my favorite stages in Lincoln, because it's very intimate as well, because it's right there. And then they can just all sit there and make fun of you while you're dancing. And as you're yelling out to the band members, and they're literally right there, and they can see the lettuce in your teeth. But I absolutely love the setup that you have too. So
one of the best compliments I think we've been paid is the second time Billy Bacon and the Forbidden Pigs played at the bar, and this has been quite a few years ago. One of the patrons that had seen him quite a few times at another bar had stated that he goes, "I can actually move around, and I can go out in the beer garden, and I can play pool, and I can do all these things." And he says, "I'm not just stuck, in a 2-foot square that I can't move in. And I said, yeah, it is. It doesn't look like there's as many people as there is because people can spread out a little bit back there.
100%. Your whole bar. It's just, I love how the setup, and you have a sound guy that's over by the bar. You have a long bar too, which is great as well. And because you're standing in line in some of those bars and you're just like, takes you forever to get a drink. And your guys' service is phenomenal as well. Being a bartender, you look at things like that, and you have a good group of people there. And, but your sound guy, like you said, he's phenomenal. I know a few of my friends that have played there that they absolutely love having a sound guy and a good one. So kudos to you for that as well.
Yeah, we'd had some local bands that wanted to bring their own sound person, and they would bring them once or twice and get to know Jeff, and they say, well, we'll just work with Jeff now.
Well, you also hit the mother load on acoustics as a musician on stage. Like, I can remember playing you get to play up high, which is really fun as a musician because you feel like Keith Richards and all these people when you're up there playing guitar and you're just standing there on top of everybody. You just feel on top of the world, but you can hear everything as a singer. Mm-hmm. And that's a great thing. It's just for the musicians that haven't played, you guys really should contact Pat and them and try to get in on that and really, or just go to a show and see for yourself. It's a wonderful venue. I always love playing there. I would definitely love to have an event of some sort at some point and maybe get the chance to play there again sometime, man. It's great.
Sure. We've, and over the years, we piece things together and do constant improvements. So we first had the stage built that was hollow, and there was a lot of complaints about it echoing back or through the stage. So we went back and pulled the deck up and filled it full of insulation. Then there were some complaints about the subs kicking back to the stage. So we built a platform over the top of it to bring some of that down. And then that gives lead singers a place to strut their stuff up on that platform without worrying about falling off the stage. Yeah. Then we went back and actually bought a bunch of moving blankets at Harbor Freight and hung those from the ceiling back there to deaden some of that steel down. And it really is a Frankenstein project, but it does work out because anybody that was going to build a live venue would never build a building like that. Jeff's knowledge, and we put some bass traps in, and it gets better all the time as people say, hey, I don't like this. We find a cost-effective fix for it. I'll say that. We're not cheap, but we're cost-effective.
My sound booth here is a moving blankets wrapped. It kills everything in the room, and it even deadens, where everything kind of goes towards it. It acts it. So you guys are setting up studios or whatever, get those moving blankets.
Hey, Pat, did you have a background in live music before owning the bar? Did you, what was your motivation to get into doing live music?
I think the biggest thing was I always enjoyed going to see live shows at other venues around town, other places. I travel to see shows. But the biggest thing was that the live music, I just wanted to do the booking. I wanted to bring in bands and take some of the things that I've learned or some of the bands that I've listened to or some of the genres I've listened to and try to bring it to other people. I like cover bands, but what I don't enjoy is turning off the radio in my pickup and going in and hearing that same song as I walk in. If it's current hit on the radio, some people like that. That's great. I like bands that dig into some stuff that you don't hear very often. One of the great ones is Shithook. They'll play 60s bands and songs you had heard, but you hadn't heard it for 20, 25 years. They don't play it on the radio. And it's like, oh, I remember that song. And it's great when a customer or a fan will go up to the band and say, I hadn't heard that song since I was driving my 68 Plymouth, that kind of thing. So that always makes me happy when I hear people appreciate the genre.
You're so right. I used to go see Shithook every Thursday night at Duffy's during my college days.
I still do. I was down there to see him at the Zoo Bar last night. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I always kind of liked that part of it, that you had all these different people and it was always something different every time, even if some of the songs were the same, but it just something different. And, you do get a little tired of following certain cover bands. If you're not just an 80s guy or a 90s guy or a rap guy or metal guy.
And that was the thing, like Shoemaker, when I first started going to hear him, I got turned on to genres I'd never heard before. Proto-punk. I didn't know anything about Iggy Pop and the Stooges or the Sonics or MC5 or any of those. I'd heard one MC5 song, but then I go back and start listening to it, especially with digital streaming music. I can find all these songs, these great songs that I would have never heard any other place.
Cain, we talk about that all the time, don't we? About streaming and the effects it has on people.
Yeah, of course we do. And, one thing you touched on is like not wanting to go in after you just listen to like the Eagle or something. And then you go in and you hear the same thing. Some of these cover bands out there, it is good when some like the big ones can play note for note and it's like a show. But then these smaller ones, you have to do like we used to really twist songs around like hell to pay.
Mm-hmm.
I know you guys are having them there pretty soon, right?
Yeah.
And they did exactly what we did. They like to twist songs around and make them their own so that it gives you an experience. Like you can hear a country version of this or you can hear a rock version of this. They're an amazing band if you haven't seen them.
Yes, they are very good. They're one of my favorites as a fan to listen to.
Yeah.
They do an old song that was covered a bunch of times called Spiders and Snakes. And I think it was Jim Stevenson maybe that did it originally, but it was an obscure, maybe top 20, way back in 71. And they'll turn those around and they'll take, a Mac Davis song and rock it up. And, if you're of my generation, you've heard those songs. You heard them when they were new, a little bit on the radio, especially the AM style hits. Because when I was a kid, I listened to KOMS because that's what my sisters and brothers listened to. So I got to hear those old AM hits like Bay City Rollers and bands like that. So I still have kind of a soft spot for that because so when they'll play a Bay City Roller song like Saturday Night, it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of like when I was a kid.
Yeah. They provide that nostalgia factor that you really want to experience when you go to see a live band.
Exactly. And, same with some 80s bands. They do the same thing. They'll play a song that you hadn't heard for a long time, and it's really great that people can come in and, I have never heard that song before, or I haven't heard it for years and years because they don't play it on the radio or any other place anymore. So,
well, you do have a plethora of bands that come in. Also, when you're looking at the stage, and I think it's on the right wall, you have all of those posters of all the bands or a lot of the bands that have played there for years. And I was reading it the other day and looking at all of them. Man, you got some crazy cool people that have been there. And I think I was asking Karen, or maybe it was you, who was your favorite? And, or not favorite, but one of the bands that you loved having there. And I know you had a few of them, but there was one particular one. Do you remember which one that was?
I think it might have been Billy Bacon. Because Billy I loved him personally, and I got to know him here and there. And in fact, one night when Shidduch was playing down at Duffy's, Billy had done a set at the Zoo Bar, an early set, and he was over there sitting in with the band. I asked him about one of his songs. It was Little Town Fool, and he goes, well, I'm not going to sing it. He goes, but why don't you sing it, and I'll play bass on it for you. So one of my favorite artists, I got to actually sing his song, and all he said was, "Oh, you did a pretty good job." I wouldn't expect much more than that. It's his song, but it's good. It's nice to meet these older musicians and hear these stories. You'll sit down and you hear stories about Beamers. What was it? Randy would remember Larry's Showcase.
Yeah,
and hearing stories about guys opening up for the Talking Heads. And Dave Roble opened up for the Talking Heads, and I said, "How was I can't remember the lead singer's name from the Talking Heads." Anyway, I said, "Is he as strange in person as he was in his videos?" And he goes, "Absolutely, just a strange guy, just off the wall." So you get to hear about all the old days that they would go to these gigs and they play here and they play there, and a lot's changed too. I remember when the Grove could pack it in Monday and Tuesday with a band like Wasp. I hope it comes back. I don't think we're ever going to be to that point again. There's too many other entertainment options. You've got streaming TV and you can watch YouTube and watch any band you want. And you can watch hours upon hours of Rolling Stones if that's what you want to do. So it's a little bit tough, but always got somebody good playing. And I always tell people there's rarely a cover charge unless it's a bigger name act. We don't have a cover charge. Stop in, have a Pepsi, have a beer, check out the band. If you don't like them, come back the next week. It's just like the weather. It's going to change. We're always have different genres, different things going on. So,
well, and you do have a lot of stuff going on. Battle of the Bands. I know that's a huge thing that you guys put on. And another aesthetic thing of in the back, you had that guitar, and I think you give whoever wins, you give a guitar that has like signature. I don't know. It was really cool though. But the Battle of the Bands, we have to talk about that in a second. But I want to hear about this guitar.
Okay, so the giveaway guitar. initially I had the idea to bring this guitar in and try to get the bands to play one song on it and then autograph the guitar. And then at the end of the year at Battle of the Bands, we would then auction that guitar off for charity. Well, originally I'm a Freemason and a Shriner, so I was choosing a Masonic, like the Masonic Boys and Girls Home in Fremont, as the recipient. In the last couple of years, we changed that. The winning bid gets to pick their charity as long as it's a legitimate charity. Then what we do is then we donate the money back to that charity, the auction money. Well, the last couple of years, last year was a little bit down, but the 2 years before, we're getting $500-$600 for this $100 guitar that I go buy at the pawn shop. And I try to buy the most awful, beat up, unknown guitar you can find. I mean, just cheap guitars. This one is a red, white, and blue knockoff Strat that I paid $99 for new. And all the bands just think it's great. You know, the last year's went to Martin Luther Homes. The one before went to the Autistic Foundation. Both of them, and I knew the people that bought them, they took the guitars, and both places have guitar players that work there, and they teach these autistic kids and the kids at Martin Luther Home how to play on the signed guitar.
Oh my, that is freaking amazing. That is really cool. I love that so much. Okay, that is totally, I just fell in love now even more.
It's worked out great. And so during the finals of Battle of the Bands, we'll then stop the show and have the auction. And we'll auction this guitar over, and people they fill the whole stage area to bid on this guitar because it's got to be such a tradition now to do that. We did use a bass one year. Somebody had given me a K bass, and we did a bass. So, but we've always done guitars except for the one bass. Yeah, we've had some great bands come through, and they love playing it, and everybody say, it's not a great guitar, but it's fun to do, and they'll scratch on their autograph, and away it goes. So.
When do you do the Battle of the Bands? Like, when is the whole shindig going down?
It is always the third weekend in January. And I'd have to look at my calendar for the exact dates. So the way it works is we'll put out a message. Hey, if you want to get on Battle of Bands, please message us. And then about 3 weeks ahead of time, I'll start the bracketing. And I always leave myself some room because we get some late entries. So we don't create the final schedule, but rather than just having everybody yell for their favorite band and have them all play, in the prelims, each band gets a 20-minute set. And it's win or lose. There's no payment for your 20-minute set. And I'll try to group them based on genre. If I've got 3 country bands, I'll put 3 country bands together so you don't have a metal band against a country band, and it's really hard to judge that. If I don't have enough of one, we have to mix them in. So the preliminaries could go to Thursday if we get enough bands, and we'll run it Thursday, Friday. And then the winner of each group, of each flight, then goes to the finals on Saturday. During the finals, you get 40 minutes, and it's balloting is all paper ballots that I print out the ballots. I put them out and I collect them so I don't let anybody stuff them. And you have to wait to the end of the flight before you can then vote, because I don't want people showing up to see their van and then voting and walking out not hearing the other bands. So we go through this flight, and then once we got them grouped up, we'll group them together, and then all the bands will all play together. They each get 40 minutes, and the winner is paper balloted, and they get the entire door for the weekend. Plus, we add usually $200 to $400 into that.
And you sign up where if you're a band?
Message us on Facebook at Grace Keg. My wife and I both do some scheduling. We'll then put that group together, and then as we get closer, probably January 1st, I'll start breaking the groups up. And usually what happens, we have a band drop out later, somebody that gets added in. So we'll have to readjust that. And then I'll have all the brackets out. And we create a group chat with the contact from each band so I can communicate with them directly about what the changes are, who needs what. Sometimes there's scheduling issues. Hey, we can play Friday, but we can't play Thursday. You have to be able to play Saturday if you get to the finals. You can do Thursday and not Friday. Then we have to adjust those groups based on people's work schedules.
And has this started already? The signing up, everything, and you got it going already?
Yeah, the signing up has already started. So we get plenty enough people to get the word out, let their friends know, hey, you got a band, come give it a try. Cain and I were just talking about last year's winner was Pearl Parade, and they were the first one to win it twice in a row. It was great. And so the big keg sign at the back of the bar, the one that's lit up, those were the outdoor signs before we changed our signs to our logo. So the winner now gets to autograph that sign. Say winner Pearl Parade 2023. We have had two ties on the preliminaries, and both times it was Till Hell that tied with another band. The interesting part was is that we do rock, paper, scissors to decide who gets to go on. And I count all the votes, and I count them and count them, and I do not vote, so I didn't break the tie. Well, they did, and Tell Hell lost to get to the finals both times on rock, paper, scissors.
And talk about fate.
That's just
fate treating you wrong, right?
Justin's like, I guess we're never going to get in the finals. And I said, well, keep trying. You guys are right there. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
Maybe get him a tambourine or something to sign. I don't know, or a ukulele.
Straws or something. I don't know. Maybe something different than rock, paper, scissors.
You got to do like a makeup show for those guys.
Right.
On another weekend or something.
Well, and the crazy part about it is that the band that beat him was a bunch of really young kids. She didn't know how to do rock, paper, scissors. So I had to show her before we did it. And they were all high school kids, and they got to the finals. Yeah.
They were doomed from the start. She didn't even know how to do
Yeah.
All right, everybody. This is the best part of the show in my head. I love all parts of the show, but this part in particular really makes me giddy and wanting more. So let's start with doing our commercials. Let's run the Elegant Sasquatch and Sly Inc. commercial, and then we'll do our local roundup with our amazing sponsors. Then we'll come back with our guest and sponsor, Pat Gray from Gray's Keg. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, get ready to rumble with the Ultimate Beard Care Showdown. Introducing our headliner, the one, the only, Squatch.
Oh, yeah, Mean Jim. Squatch in the house, and I'm here to tell you about beard products that'll make your whiskers the talk of the town. If your beard's ready to take on the world, you need the power of our beard balms, butters, and oils, brother.
That's right, Squatch. Let's kick things off with the Beard Balm of Legends.
This beard balm is like a body slam for your beard. It tackles those wild hairs and smooths them out, making your beard look like $1,000,000. No sweat, brother.
What's the scoop with the beard butter?
Oh, brother, it's a game changer. This butter makes your beard softer than a cloud and as easy to manage as a well-oiled wrestling machine. Plus, it's got a scent that's as sweet as victory. Oh, yeah.
And let's not forget the beard oil.
The beard oil is the final knockout punch. It hydrates, shines, and smells like a championship belt made of cedar and pine. Your beard will be the 1, 2, 3 of any match.
Where can our fans score these unbeatable products?
You read my mind, brother. Head on over to elegantsasquatchco.etsy.com and grab your beard gear. And listen up. Use the code SUPERSHOW and get a jaw-dropping 20% off. That's right, 20% off. Your beard's about to go from 0 to hero, brother.
That's elegantsasquatchco.etsy.com and use your code SUPERSHOW for 20%. Don't wait, make your beard the ultimate champ today. Ahoy, mateys! Christopher Columbus here. You know me. I discovered America, or at least that's what the history books have been saying for years. Anyways, I have a little confession to make. My compass quit halfway through the trip, and I got lost at sea on the way there.
Ahoy, Captain. What direction should we point the boat?
Shut up, you fool. I'm in the middle of a commercial here. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh, yes. When we arrived on land there, the natives were all decked out in their cool Viking gear. They said these big, smelly, bearded guys came, hung out, then split with all their cool stuff.
Aye, it was a weird day.
That could have been our cool stuff. We could have claimed all this great treasure and all this pirate's plunder.
But, sir, how will we steer the boat if we don't have a compass?
Well, this next trip is going to be different. I'm heading to Sly Ink Tattoo to get a compass on my hand. After that, everything is coming up Christopher Columbus.
Ahoy, sir. That new ink looks great on you. After I swaps the poop deck and grease the hootenannies, I think we're going to be back to speed and... Oh no.
What is it now, you buffoon?
It appears as if America's shores are just on the horizon.
What? How could this be? I've been pointing my arm in the same direction for days. Well, looks like this tattoo compass is broken too. Guess I'll have to head back to Sly Ink for that dolphin lower back tattoo I've been wanting to get. Well, looks like our native friends are waving us in, but oh, wait, they don't look very happy. Well, until next time, friends, if there is one.
Oh, yeah, everybody. We got the local roundup. What's going on this weekend coming up here? Let's start with Gray's Keg since we're talking to Pat from Gray's Keg right now. Let's look at Friday, November 22nd. Jerry and the Rat Bastards. That's right. Those Rat Bastards are at it again, and they're at Gray's Keg. It's going to be an awesome show. Saturday night, they've got the Pickles of Dill. That's going to be pretty sweet. I think they play a good variety of everything for everybody. I haven't really seen a ton of them around, but I'm definitely going to want to check that out. So go see them on Saturday night. Also, Wednesday, November 27th. That's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Gray's has got Shit Hook, everybody. So you don't want to miss that show. It's one of the best nights in all of the land. From an entertainer's perspective, it was always popping whenever you had the day before Thanksgiving. Everybody's in town, so go see Shit Hook at Gray's. Matson's this week. Thursday nights, they've got, obviously, Mr. Chill. Every Thursday night, they've got Mr. Chill with karaoke. Friday night, that's right, November 22nd, when this comes out, got Hell to Pay. Hell to Pay, can we just tell you guys, have we talked you guys into Hell to Pay yet? Go see those guys. They're amazing. Love those guys. The Zoo Bar's also got a big one too. I guess they've got for 2 nights. They've got the Jimmies. They're a 7-piece funky blues band. They've got them Friday and Saturday night. I believe the admission is $15. So I think you can even buy them beforehand. So get a hold of them. There's a lot of other stuff going on out there, but that's all we have for this time. So get out there, everybody, and support live music. Now let's get back to our amazing guest, Pat Gray from Gray's Keg.
Hey, Cain, I want to throw something out that Pat brought up. The lead singer for Talking Heads is David Byrne.
I knew it slipped my mind. Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that in there so Cain would have to put the Talking Heads in our Spotify playlist.
Man, that list is building like phenomenal. I think we're up to like 450 songs right now and growing. And I add some from time to time. Like I obviously consume a ridiculous amount, but this list, you guys got to get on there. If you have Spotify, get on there, look up the Scratch the Vinyl podcast playlist, and you're going to be pleasantly surprised. If you throw that on shuffle, you're going to have a hell of a day's worth of music on your hands.
And just my 2 cents, the best Talking Head song is Psycho Killer. So,
Yep.
I agree.
yeah, it wasn't one of the big hits like Take Me to the River and in the, what is the, they had another hit, another big hit after that, and I can't remember what it was. We were talking about it last night. But yeah, you know, and it's fun to go back and listen to some of that stuff that I heard in the 80s. You know, I'm listening to a lot of Bob Seger lately. Live Bob Seger. I forgot all those good Bob Seger songs that you don't hear anymore. Yeah. You know, like 9 to Night and Nutbush City Limits is another one. They're great songs. And, you know, you forget because when I was in the 80s, you heard those songs a lot, but you just don't hear them anymore.
Well, that live, what is it? The Live Bullet Band.
Live Bullet one, yeah.
It's famous for being a great live album for a reason. I mean, I think I have a couple copies of it here, and I listen to it on occasion because Bob Seger was one of my heroes because I have kind of a smoky voice, you know, and I can do Bob Seger pretty well. But I mean, we used to play like Sunspot Baby and songs like that you don't really hear a lot of people covering as much. Or
that's it. You know, and speaking of cover songs, we get bands once in a while, and while I appreciate that they're pure and they do all original music, but some of the greatest bands, the Stones covered Chuck Berry. In fact, on that live album on Live Bullet, he covers Chuck Berry also. Yeah. Bob Seger does. So bands have been doing cover songs for years and years and years. Elvis covered Three Dog Night. Elvis covered Chuck Berry. You know, these guys traded and shared these songs for years. So, you know, doing a cover song is not an indictment of you not being a good band. And, you know, sometimes people just want to hear a few songs that they know that they've heard before.
Well, you raise a fantastic point. I mean, that's the truth. People kind of look down on cover bands, but think about, okay, if you look behind me, I have all these Beatles records, right? Some of the Beatles' biggest hits were at those times when they were were covers, right? And they would cover, they cover blues hits, they covered Kansas City, they covered all these different things. The Carpenters, they made their massive success off of being really good at covering. And so now every artist, including myself, who is a recording artist, we all have at least 1 to 2 good covers in our pocket that we can show because it helps you highlight. So stop saying cover bands, everybody, are nothing, because that's how a lot of people get their start. That's how you learn. You learn from the best on how to play music.
Yeah, what's the Beatles song, the Buck Owens song the Beatles covered? That Ringo sang.
Act Naturally?
Act Naturally,
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, they covered a country song. And I remember reading somewhere that Buck Owens thought it was great. He said they did a great job of it.
Well, a lot of times too, they take it and make it their own. And that's really cool. Like they just, make it sound like the song, but sometimes this sounds completely different. And that's really hard to do, I think, in my opinion. And I'm not a musician, but I've seen people do it, and it is a little difficult. And it's art. I think it's really cool.
Well, and there's a band out there called the Gourds that I'm a big fan of, and they covered Gin and Juice by Snoop Dogg. And Snoop Dogg came right out and said that this is one of the greatest covers I've ever heard.
I love that song. Oh my God, I can't believe you said, yeah, the one that they redid. That's a good one.
There was a band called Hayseed Dixie that would cover a bunch of rock songs, hair band songs in bluegrass. And I love listening to it, and they do a great job with it. They're not making fun of it. They're just doing it their own way.
There's so many good, Dynamite Hack. I don't know if you guys remember them. They covered Boys in the Hood in a rock way, did some NWA. There's just so many out there. My favorite story on a cover is, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Always by My Side, which is the Jimi Hendrix movie. It's got Andre 3000 or whatever playing Jimi Hendrix, and he goes out, and basically the Beatles just released Sgt. Pepper's, right? And Jimi Hendrix was a massive Beatles fan, so he rushes to the store, he listens to it, and he takes it, and I don't know how true this is, but he takes it that night. They're going to be playing, and the boys are there, right? The Beatles are there at this theater that he's playing in England, and he goes, and one of the first songs he plays, he rips a Beatles song and just absolutely shreds the guitar. And I'm sure Paul McCartney and George Harrison were like beside themselves, like completely blown away by this guy. Yeah. That had to have been crazy.
Well, and look at how many Dylan songs that Hendrix covered. Again, back to the cover songs. He loved Dylan's stuff and decided to record it his own way, and he did a great job. All Along the Watchtower was, obviously a Dylan song.
Yeah.
And that was one of Hendrix's bigger hits.
And I think we need Patrick as a regular on the show. Like, you're really good at prompting us for like more music, and I can tell that you're a really huge fan of music in general.
I am. I grew up listening to Buck Owens and Waylon Jennings and Johnny Cash with my dad, and a little bit of Willie Nelson. But then he listened to bluegrass too. And when I was a kid, I just detested it. I didn't want to hear any of it. And then as I got older, I realized that these are some pretty good artists. Waylon Jennings is one of my favorites. Buck Owens is great. I listen to Buck Owens all the time. And Buck Owens was a guy that bucked Nashville, literally, fought the system. He wouldn't do it Nashville's way. And I remember reading that he only got one country music award, and he had multiple number one hits, and the award was Lifetime Achievement. But Nashville would not recognize him as one of the greatest because he didn't play in their system.
Yeah.
So, and that's still true to this day. You have to walk the line and do it. We were in Nashville recently, and, there's hundreds of good bands playing any given night. They play for tips. The bars don't pay them.
They continue to play for tips, huh?
They're hoping that somebody will walk in that catches them and gets them a break. Yeah.
Owens had a guitar player that was like one of the best guitar players in the planet.
Don Rich.
Yep.
Great guitar player.
That Lainey Wilson just, was basically bucked by Nashville. And then she goes out and puts out a number one album and then gets, literally proves them wrong to the listening audience.
There's, I'm losing the name, but there was another gentleman that I'll remember the name, but I really like his stuff. And I was going to say, hey, with this guy, I hadn't heard him before. Let's see if we can catch him on a weekday coming through. And he sold out Red Rocks 2 nights in a row and never gets any radio time. And that's what I love about the streaming stuff is you can go out and listen to whatever you want and you can make them famous, and it doesn't have to come through the producers and the Nashville executives or any other rock executive. You can make it big and sell your stuff and get people to show up at your shows just because you're good. You don't have to play the system.
See, Cain, we talk about this all the time, don't we? And we kind of debate whether it's good or bad. And I think Pat just made the best argument for it right there, honestly.
Yeah. And you know, I was happy when CDs came out, when I had, you know, I've got probably 1,000 vinyls, but I had, was able to get 20 CDs. I thought I was really doing something with 20 CDs. You know, now I've got 1,600 songs on my playlist, and it's just, I can just mushroom out. I'll listen to a band. Hey, I like that one. Here's bands like this. I'll find 4 or 5 more songs by them I like, and it just keeps spreading out. I can sit for hours just adding songs to my playlist because I'll catch it or catch them. Now they're doing like deluxe sets. There's the Stones Exile on Main Street. They've got 5 or 6 new tracks that weren't released originally. So you can hear new Stone songs from the album that you never got to hear before. You know, when was the last time you heard "Sweet Virginia" on the radio? You know, and some of those "Rocks Off" is another Stone song. They just don't play them anymore. They play the same 5 songs over and over. And I get it from a radio station point of view. You have to appeal to the masses, and when you start getting in the weeds, people quit listening. But you're so limited in your variety if you're just listening to the radio or just listening to, you know, the 80s hits. You know, there was a lot of great bands in the 80s that nobody had ever heard of.
That was our argument, Pat, was that the whole idea of what we used to go buy an album and you'd find those hidden gems on the backside, or, you know, as listeners, we would just go consume a whole album and find those hidden gems that we loved that would never get any airtime. That's kind of what our argument about streaming is about. It's they just release singles mostly. And so you don't always get as much opportunity to listen to some of their other stuff. And so that's why we're still fans of vinyl, I guess.
Well, yeah. And well, I don't remember the Aerosmith album that had 10-inch record on it. The first time I heard that after I bought the album, I'm like, I had no idea that they released a song like that. You know, that was one of those hidden gems. Yeah.
Speaking of singles, I'm going to let you guys know right now that I just remastered and re-released Concrete Heart by myself. So that's now on streaming as well. So you can listen to that. And I've got some of my albums. I'm getting those remastered. And I really suggest to anybody, not just listening to me, but everybody, when somebody puts an album out, the order and everything matters. Listen to it from start to finish. I think that a lot of people, some just kind of throw it in a hat. But for me, I like to tell a story from start to finish. I like to start with intro music. I like to have something in the middle. I like to have something in the end. So I would suggest to anybody that's the most fun about listening to music, especially on streaming, as Pat's saying, is to go there and don't get caught up in the shuffle all the time. Listen to the full album. I can only imagine you said you have at least 1,000 albums. So this is Randy's question all the time, but we got to know, you know, what else is in your collection? I mean, do you have a massive collection of everything like I do, cassettes, CDs and all that? And what's your most prized possession in that?
About 3 years ago, I was cleaning the garage out and I tossed all the cassettes, threw them all away. They hadn't been taken care of. They'd been laying on the shelf and getting hot, getting cold. And probably my most prized one that I don't have anymore, my most prized one is a VHS, and it was of Jane's Addiction that we got in the late 80s. And it's only about a 15-minute clip, but it was so cool to see Jane's Addiction and the guys cutting up and telling stories. I'd never seen anything like that before. But the most prized possession was a Jane's Addiction live cassette that I'd bought at Pickles. And it was made by a record company called US Metal. And I took it, I had left it on the dash of my car, and it warped the cassette. So I took it back to Pickles, and I said, hey, can you give me another one of these? And he goes, we don't have it. Where'd you buy it? And I said, I bought it here. And he goes, that's a bootleg.
Oh, wow.
And I bought it used at Pickles. I said, I wanted a new one. So, you know, when I had that happen with blues player that used to play at the Zoo Bar all the time.
Oh, Magic Slim.
Magic Slim. So I bought a cassette of Live at the Zoo Bar, and I took it in for Magic Slim to sign it, and I still have it. He signed it, and he goes, by the way, I didn't endorse that. I didn't allow that. That was a bootleg. He goes, I've never seen that before. As you didn't know anything about it. He goes, I never made a dime, never even saw it before. Wow. And so he did go ahead and sign it for me. But getting to know guys like Magic Slim, you got the show you got depending on how much Jack Daniels he had before the show. Sometimes he gets so drunk he'd have to sit down and play. Other times it was just incredible. Guys in his band, like Lucky Peterson, I saw at the Zoo Bar. Lucky Peterson was an incredible guitar player, exciting. And so some of those bands I used to see down there, and that's some of the reason why I wanted to get into booking live music was that excitement I felt as a young man going in to see these bands.
Well, and you mentioned the Zoo Bar. I mean, you and I have had this conversation before. You're one of those owners. You're not afraid to talk about these other venues.
No,
you
not
look
at all.
You look at it all as a buffet, right? Like everybody can go to these venues and still come see you, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And I've always tried to stress that to other music venues. We talk with some of them, and Pete that owns the Zoo Bar, we talk. I wouldn't say frequently, but every time we see him, we sit down and have a beer together and talk about it. How are things going? And he's had some questions and I have some questions for him because, I had said about 2 years into this, I had mentioned this was to Phil Shoemaker. I said, man, I wish I could figure out how to book these bands to get more people in. He says, Pete's been trying it for 25 years. And he said, he hasn't figured it out yet. What makes you think you can? That's true. There's always the ups and downs. It's a tough thing and especially in Lincoln, Nebraska, when you're competing against volleyball, you're competing against football, you're competing against basketball, you're competing against Friday high school sports. All these things draw from that pool. But I firmly believe that the more live music venues we have gets more people to see music, and then it flows out to everybody. Rather than trying to say, I'm better than somebody else, everybody gets a piece of the pie, their niche, and then we all work together. The Bourbon obviously has their niche. The Zoo Bar has theirs. And we just are looking for a place that everybody said, well, you just book country bands because it's called The Keg. And I said, no, we book all kinds of music. I would book a good polka band if I could find one. As long as people want to come see them, I put them on the stage. There was a band that we were looking to get again. I think they started playing Nebraska Grease and Power, the horn band. And our sound guy, he mic'd every instrument, every horn he mic'd. I think there was 12 horns in that band. And I said, Jeff, you got to do it. He goes, I want it to sound right. And so he mic'd everybody. And it was pretty incredible to watch him up there micing all those horns and sound checking each one of those horns. He's just he just loves doing it. It makes him happy to do that. So,
I do talk about this all the time, that it's something I tried to do for many years being in the bar business was I tried to explain to a lot of other places that always kind of have this us against them mentality. I said, when you do that, you're taking away from, one, our ability to make money if you're undercutting everybody all the time.
Right.
And two, if you get better venues that are doing live music all the time, then you're training the customers to realize it's a value to go out and see great live music. And the more people do it, the more there is of it. There's a demand for it. And I wish some people would understand that, but I'm glad that you guys do. And that's a lot of the places I go to is because, they're willing to work with everybody, because everybody's wants to see the same thing. They want to see good crowds come out and see great bands.
Well, and one of the things we did when we bought the bar was we tried to keep our demographics segmented for the bar. So at that time, the bar was opening at 6 a.m. every day, except for Sunday. Well, COVID really shut that down. There was just not enough people to even open up the shifts. But today we'll have 20, 25, 30 guys down there and females at the happy hour crowd, but they'll come at 3:00. They play darts, they shoot pool. Now, those folks aren't going to stay for the band tonight. They're going to be gone. So I don't worry about trying to pull them in, but I don't do anything to change it to make it harder for them to enjoy their time. We got our day crowd, we got our weeknight crowd, we got our weekend crowd, and they all it's like it changes its colors at 7:30 to 9. It turns into a music venue, but during the day it's just for guys to have a beer and hang out and visit with each other. So those are the great things I love about it. It's always been. We came in with a really bad reputation. The Keg still has with a lot of people a bad reputation. It's not that place that you thought it was. Not anymore. It hasn't been for over 10 years. It's comfortable. It's nice. The service is good. Everybody's respectful. But what I always loved about the place is anytime, day or night, you can walk in and sit down and make a friend within about 2 minutes. It's kind of like Cheers it's just kind of like Cheers. You're going to sit down and you start visiting with people. You sit down at what we call Liar's Corner at the south end of the bar, and everybody sits down there and they tell stories and they drink beer and they buy each other shots and ask them how their day was going. They only see these people at the bar, but they're friends. I've got people that I've known for 10 years down there. I don't even know their last name. It doesn't matter what their last name is. We had a regular pass away and did a little service for him. And somebody says, well, what was his last name? And I said, I don't know. And it didn't really matter. I was still his friend. He was just Bob. Hey, Bob. So those are the things you can enjoy if you want to, stop by after work and have a beer. And like I said, within 2 minutes, you'll have somebody you're talking to and visiting with. And you literally can sit at the bar and have a millionaire on your left side and a homeless guy on your right, or close to being homeless. So those are the things that are interesting. You get interesting conversations when millionaires talk to other people that might make $10,000 a year, that kind of thing. It makes it enjoyable.
I can totally relate to that because working at Kelly's, I mean, people don't know their last name sometimes and they don't know what job they have, but they all are best friends. Mm-hmm. And you meet a lot of cool people. And I've met a few people at your bar as well. And, they'll venture off to other bars and stuff. And it's like during the day, everybody's just shooting the shit. And then that night we'll have karaoke, singing, or, it's just it changes night crowds and day crowds. And I love all the regulars. Like you said, most of them do have like nicknames. So they're like, is Robbie Smith there? Someone will call him like, who? And I'm like, oh, Pookie. Yeah, he's here. They do. It's a family in a sense. And it is like, that's how Greg's, that's how you guys, Gray's literally is like a bar you walk in and can talk to anybody. And the staff is amazing too. And I'd have to say the owners are pretty amazing as well.
Interesting story about Kelly's. I used to live up the street about 64th and Layton. And I used to stop when it was a liquor store, when Denny owned the liquor store, and grab a 6-pack. I was working night shift and he was open in the morning. I'd grab a 6-pack and go home. And I came in one day and he says, he goes, I got a petition here to turn this into a bar. And I said, and it was just the main space. It wasn't even, I don't even think the back room was open yet. And so he asked me, I'll sign it. I said, I don't think it's going to work, but I'll sign it. And pretty soon the bar's open. I started going down, and I'd go down on Saturday afternoon when it was hot and drink beer while Denny and I'd watch movies on VHS. And he had bought a whole bunch of Bud Dry, and nobody was buying it. He couldn't get rid of it, and he couldn't get rid of it. And he says, well, will you drink it for $1 a bottle? And I said, sure. So I started drinking it for $1 a bottle, and we went on. And finally he says, I'm out. I said, out of what? And I said, out of Bud Dry. And I said, oh no, I don't get my dollar beers anymore. And he goes, nope, you got to switch to something else. I said, order some more. And he goes, well, I'm not going to do that. I couldn't get rid of what I had.
I got a similar story. I used to sell 12-ounce cans for $1 like that. Right. And my beer guys, when they would they would start to get close to out of date, and the Super Saver was their big account, and they would lose their commissions if they didn't sell all that beer. So they would call me and like, Randy, would you please take, 200 cases of Bud Dry and sell them for $1 to get rid of them so we don't lose our commission?
That's exactly right. Yeah. It was interesting, and won't get to the whole story, but when we bought the bar, we had 12 cases of what's that cognac. I can't think of the name of it, but it's really popular.
Cervasier?
No. There's another one. I can't remember the cognac, but we had and we couldn't sell it. I couldn't. Nobody was buying it. So
just Hennessy.
It was Hennessy. Yeah. There were 12 cases of Hennessy. We bought the bar, and it just nobody was buying it. So we used to make this keg juice, and we would pour Hennessy in there and put some fruit juice in there and sell it for $1 or $2. And it's like, you're selling Hennessy for that? I said, well, I don't know what else to do with it. It's sitting here I'm tripping over it in the liquor room, and I can't get rid of it. Oh, I should have held on to that Hennessy. There used to be a gentleman that came into Kelly's that was the spitting image of Barry Switzer. And he came in one football Saturday when Nebraska was playing Oklahoma. And it was it was actually the evening before he was there before the game. And this gal was convinced that it was Barry Switzer. And I didn't say anything. And finally, he showed her his license. Well, you live across the street from me. You're not Barry Switzer.
I know who that is. He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah,
his name's Don Ousdill.
Yeah, it looks just like him.
Looks just like him.
Yeah, and he dresses like him and has the same mannerisms. It's just it's uncanny how much he looks like him. Yeah. Yeah.
Of course you know him, Randy, the Northeast ambassador, the mascot of Northeast Lincoln knows him.
I used to actually go on some bowling trips with Don. And I remember one time we came back through, oh God, one of the small towns on a Saturday night. And he's like, we're gonna go in here and get something to eat. And they're having a little small town hoedown. And we're literally in the pisser. And some young kid, he's like, you're that Oklahoma guy. Yeah. I mean, the kid literally thought, Barry Switzer's in their small town pissing in the urinal on a Saturday night. And they would ask him for his autograph, and he would sign it Barry, Berry.
We have a guy that comes in that looks like the Nebraska coach, Matt. And I always tell people, I'm like, yeah, that's the coach over there. I mean, it's during the Husker game sometimes, like, what? It's crazy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're cut off. And I always tell the guy, I'm like, I'm going to have people come, you got to sign your name. He's like, do I sign the coach's name or my name? I'm like, your name. They do. It looks just like him. There's some people, I don't know.
There used to be a place on 70th and A, sort of 70th over there. It's a eye doctor now. It was called East Hills, and it was a semi-private place. And for special occasions, my dad would take us there. And one day, Devaney and Osborne are sitting there at the table, and Devaney's slugging them down 3 at a time. So my dad, he says, "Go over there and get Bob Devaney's autograph." And Tom was sitting there prim and proper, and a glass of water in front of him with his arms folded. He just did not enjoy this at all. So I walked over and Bob Devaney says, "Hey kid, what can I do for you?" And I said, I'd love to get an autograph. And he goes, "Is it for you or for your dad?" And I said, "Well, I don't know you, so it's for my dad." He goes, "Well, good enough. What's your dad's name?" And scratched on there and handed it back to him. So, one of the other things too is that we have quite a collection at the bar of beer signs. So if you enjoy old beer signs, there is a ton to look at. But I kind of based it on P.O. pairs. I hung up things randomly. Nothing is lined up. It's all, randomly placed on the walls. And I didn't want to try to provide order in a place that is in such disarray as far as the building goes, right? I want everything to be in disarray. But people bring me things all the time. One of the things a regular brought me was 1975 autograph of Evel Knievel. He saw him jump in Arizona and brought me, and it says, "To Bob, happy landings." And he goes, "You want this?" And I said, "I sure do want that. I want it very badly." So we've got a frame hanging on the bar. And there's an old pool player by the name of Willie Moscone that I saw when I was a kid. And I had the autograph from him and his picture hanging up. And the pool players just think this is great. "You met Willie Moscone?" I said, "Yeah, I was 8 years old, but yes, I did meet him." So if you haven't been to the bar, just walking around and looking at some of the memorabilia and the beer signs up there, it's interesting because there is stuff everywhere.
It is. It's really eclectic. And like I said, by that stage, like all the cool performers you've had in their advertisements, and then you're back. I mean, I love just walking around there. Like I look like the drunk homeless lady. What's that? This is cool.
And then on the opposite wall to the west, we have any of the bands that have stickers allowed to put their decals up there. And see, well, that band played here, and we do some of that. And then I've hung up some of the pictures I found, like 14-year-old Mick Jagger is hanging up, and David Bowie and Keith Richards drinking whiskey with this other girl in the picture. Just these random, weird, strange pictures that you find. Picture Waylon Jennings on his Panhead Harley, and people say, "Well, Waylon Jennings rode a Harley." Well, sure he did. He wasn't a country guy, so to speak. Johnny Cash, there's a picture back there of him eating strawberry cake, and I find these weird, strange things to hang out because I want it to be visually interesting. I want people to walk around and find something new that they hadn't seen before.
Well, I told you time will fly fast when we start doing this and we start talking about some interesting things. We're definitely going to have to get you back. And I think you gave our listeners plenty to think about and come and check out what you have to offer over there at Gray's Kegs.
Appreciate it.
And
I do have to take a chance to plug our other establishment. So we also on 25th and O, we own the Tam Restaurant and Pub. That one's been open since 1973, and it's been a spot in Lincoln for quite a while. We have changed name, and a little bit about the name changes for the places. We did change it to the Tam Restaurant and Pub instead of the Tam with Shanner, and we also did it with the keg became Gray's Keg, and the reason for that was is we wanted to make sure that we incorporated the history of the places along with knowing that it is now new owners, but still the same place. We didn't just wholesale change the names because I want people to understand, yeah, it's still the keg and people still call it the keg and everybody called the Tam. But we've got really great prime rib on Fridays and drink specials and lots of food going out there. Great burgers, really great burgers. So if you want to get a meal before you come see a band, stop up at the Tam and have a reasonably priced burger.
Pat and Karen have created 2 legendary venues. They've taken them over and they've continued the tradition of them. They've made it a family atmosphere in both places. And that's the key. When you get to talking to Pat, if you just walk around the bars with him, the bar or the Tam, he will be like a tour guide. He'll tell you everything about the place. And that's what I love about it. And that's what I think you guys will love too. So in closing, guys, we really do appreciate you being on, Pat, and we appreciate you as a sponsor. And we're just so excited to be together and working with you to continue to pump up live music. And we just can't thank you enough. Everybody listening, this was another fantastic episode. We just keep knocking them out of the park with these guests. Please tune in next week for another amazing episode with amazing guests here on
Scratch the Vinyl.